Welcome back to the Caregiver Minute, where every weekday family and professional caregivers gather to refine their skills, gain inspiration, and prepare to serve. I recently sat down with a young client of mine who's in her early 30s, and she's battled terrible anxiety and depression for years. It's been pretty debilitating for her. And as we were unpacking her health history and looking at medical contributors and what exactly is driving all of this, she expressed how frustrating it is that she can go from really calm to just frozen and unable to get out of bed pretty quickly. And along the way, she passes through kind of a fight or flight stage where she's really triggered, super anxious. Her respiratory rate is up, her heart rate is up, her body's flooded with stress chemistry. And then as she pushes through that, she winds up in this state where she's just frozen. And her pat answer to things at that time is, I don't know. She has no energy at that state. She can't get out of bed. She can't hardly function. And she'll just lie there in bed feeling horribly guilty that her husband's out working and trying to support the family, and she really should be at her job, and she's feeling like she's letting him down and letting people down at her job and letting herself down. But she just can't muster the strength to do anything more. Well, in an effort to try to help her understand what's going on with her nervous system, in a pretty simplified way, I asked her to imagine a cliff. And I said, if you're in rest and relax mode, which technically is kind of a ventral vagal response. It's the parasympathetic nervous system in its healthy state when you're just resting and relaxing. I said, that's kind of like you're 100 feet away from the edge of the cliff. Now let's imagine that if you're going over the edge of the cliff and you grab a tree as you're falling down and you're hanging there for dear life, that is fight or flight. That's the sympathetic nervous system. That's the part of the nervous system where your heart rate is up, your respiratory rate is up, your stress chemistry and hormones are just through the roof. Your body is trying to save itself. Now, if you just can't do it any longer and your hands slip off that tree and you're falling, there comes a point where you're just numb. You just totally go numb. And when that happens, you're actually shifting into another parasympathetic state. But it involves the backside of the vagus nerve, the dorsal vagal response, and that causes us to just freeze. The heart rate slows down again. The respiratory rate slows down. But so does everything else, and you end up just frozen in bed. Now, understanding those phases is helpful, but what she really wanted to understand is why is it so doggone easy for her to feel like she's off the edge of the cliff, hanging onto that tree, and then pretty soon she's frozen and just kind of falling to the bottom, and life is absolutely miserable. I described it to her this way. If most people are about 100 feet away from the edge of the cliff, then imagine what happens when you have a concussive injury, for example. I brought that up in her case because she'd had some concussions. So what if you have a concussive injury and it revs up your immune system in your brain, and you're not good at shutting that off when you need to shut down that immune response? You have the same kind of experience that you have when you get the flu. Anybody who's ever been really sick has felt sluggish and brain fogged, super low energy. Those are all outward symptoms that the immune system is at work, that your body has shifted away from energy production into cellular defense. And when you do that, you don't have a lot of gas in the tank to do anything, because it's all getting poured into the fight to try to save you from whatever the pathogen is or whatever's causing you to be sick. Now, if you have a concussive injury and you end up with post-concussion syndrome and your immune system is fired up chronically at a modest level, you kind of feel sick every day of your life. So it's sort of like you've moved from 100 feet away from the edge of the cliff to 50 feet away from the edge of the cliff. There's a shorter distance to where you're just going over the edge and your immune system's out of control and your nervous system fires up. Well, let's imagine that on top of concussive injuries, you get Epstein-Barr virus, or you have herpes simplex virus in your system, something else that also is an immune trigger. Now you're that much closer to the edge of the cliff. Let's say that you have some very stressful experiences that would trigger anybody, but they serve to move you that much closer to the edge of the cliff. All of a sudden, you find yourself one day walking 5 feet from the edge, and it only takes one difficult experience, one hard moment, and off you go. And you're hanging by that tree, and pretty soon you can't do it anymore because you don't even have the strength to fight, because this is a cycle that replays over and over and over. How do you deal with that? Well, it's very individualized to try to sort through something like that. And in this woman's case, she does have post-concussion syndrome. There's a lot of things that can be done to help in pretty short order with something like that and back a person further away from the edge of the cliff. Anytime we can strengthen the rest and relax side of the nervous system, and we can also eliminate triggers that are moving people closer to the edge of the cliff, they're going to do better. As we back away from that edge and we very proactively try to manage our health and our nervous system kinds of responses, then it takes less to send us over the edge. We're still going to have anxious, fearful, difficult situations in life. Everybody does. But if you're 100 feet away from the edge of the cliff, it takes a whole lot more before you're completely off the side of the cliff. I hope that is helpful to you. I hope it gives you a framework that makes a difference for how you see yourself and the people that you serve. I hope the next time you see someone that you're serving get ramped up into that fight or flight mode, or even just get to the point that they don't even want to respond, that you'll appreciate kind of where they are in this whole pathway. Well, thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow for another episode of the Caregiver Minute.